Hey guys, so my name is Javier Palos. I'm a student here at the Digital Borders and Bridges class at TAMIU, and today I'm going to be talking to you about border video games and immigrant representation in said games. So we're going to be taking a look at a few different examples of some border video games, how they represent immigrants, and what exactly are border video games. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. Now, before we get into it, just a few important facts about video games in general. So, video games are defined by their interactive nature, contrasting them with more passive forms of entertainment like movies or books. Whereas in a book or in a film that you're watching, you just kind of sit, you read, you watch the film. In a video game, it's a lot more interactive. So the player, in this case, has complete control over what happens in the video game to a certain degree. Video games became popular in the 1970s with the release of Pong for the Atari. By many, it's considered the first video game, although there have been a few that were released before. This was the first game to really bring video games into the mainstream media. And as of November 2020, at least half of all US households reported having a video game console. So, here are a few examples of some video games we may see that you might be familiar with. Minecraft from 2011 on the left there, and Grand Theft Auto 5 on the right. So as you can see, these games were released pretty close to each other, and the graphics or the visuals in this case are very different. Whereas in Minecraft, it's a little bit more like a animation style. Grand Theft Auto is a lot more realistic. So despite coming out around the same time, you can see the different art styles that we might see video games in. So anything from mega realistic to a little bit more of an animation type style. So what exactly are border video games? So according to Kafer, border video games follow a character or group of characters who are themselves in transit, thereby conveying the political, ethical, and emotional dimensions of the immigrant and refugee experience. At the same time, many other border games position players in the role of an immigration officer who must regulate migrant mobilities by verifying documents and patrolling land. So, the similar to what we might see in a film or even a book, video games can explore the different perspectives as well when it comes to border experiences, whether it's the role of an immigrant or of an immigration officer. And this is from a really recent article, 2022. Now, the first game I want to discuss regarding border video games is Papers, Please. So, Papers, Please was released in 2013, and it was independently developed over the span of 9 months by Lucas Pope, who was an ex-game developer for a company called Naughty Dog. So, this game has a 2D art style, so it would be similar to maybe like a animation. It's a point-and-click style of gameplay, which means kind of you grab things, you move things around, but you don't really move the character themselves. It's grabbing items, putting them aside, taking them. And the player takes on the role of an immigration officer in the fictional country of Artotska. So the player working at a border checkpoint decides which immigrants are allowed to enter the country and which are denied access. So in this game here, we play as a gatekeeper. And we can actually go over to this next slide. We can see an image here. So on the left image here, we have an immigrant who is trying to get into the country. On the right, we see certain documents. So fingerprints, we see the conditional entry, the purpose, duration, when they need to enter by, and their visa. On the top, we can kind of see an overview of the area where all the immigrants are waiting in line to see the immigration officer in order to enter on the right side, to enter this country. So again, playing as a gatekeeper, the gamer is able to experience what it might be like to see different people trying to, evade their country, whether it's because of safety, because of family being in the other country. And by making it a country that's fictional, it can be applied to many different narratives. So obviously, we see some parallels, clear parallels between Mexico and the United States, in regards to when people coming in with the border patrol here, viewing their documents, deciding whether or not they're allowed in, and such. Now, on the right side, there's another image where throughout the game you are given different requirements as to what allows an immigrant to go in or not. So these requirements are constantly changing, and so you could see stricter credential requirements have been instituted. Now they must show their ID card. Foreigners must secure and present a valid entry permit. Entry tickets are no longer sufficient. So again, the parallel between what we see in the real world and with this video game, where the rules as to who is allowed in, who is not allowed in, changes. So it allows the creation of empathy for the player, by viewing all these different characters and their experiences despite being fictional, and ultimately they're the ones that decide whether or not these people are allowed in. And here we have a gameplay trailer, so if you have the moment to watch it, I highly encourage you. It gives you an idea as to how the gameplay works, and the art style of the game, and some really good encounters that happen in the game. So the other game I want to talk to you about is Life is Strange 2. Life is Strange 2 is a little bit more modern. It was a AAA game, meaning similar to what we might see with the bigger budget film, whereas the other game is more indie. This one is developed by a huge studio, probably in the $1 million in terms of budget, 3D art style, and it was released episodically. Now, what's interesting about Life is Strange 2 is that it's a choose-your-own-adventure style of gameplay, meaning that the actions that you make in the game have an impact on the outcome of the story. And in this case, we play as two immigrants, Sean and Daniel, two brothers who are fleeing to Mexico after their father dies in a tragic accident. So this game explores themes of immigration, racism, and displacement. Again, through the eyes of these two brothers. On the left side, you can see kind of the art style, and you can, on the bottom left, see that they're walking similar to what we might see when people are fleeing from Mexico to the United States, right? Just kind of a long walk. In this case, they're walking to Mexico. So despite them being documented and having legal status in the United States, they clearly parallel what immigrants might have to do, where they're escaping their country to a new future. They're actually escaping the United States to flee to Mexico, to have a chance at a life. So it's kind of a twist on that narrative in an interesting way. And then on the right side, we see the choose your own adventure style of gameplay there, where you can choose what you want to say. So clearly, impacting the story and giving each player a unique experience for the narrative. So here we have the death of Sean's dad, which happens very early on the first game, and it's kind of the inciting incident for the story. It is really emotional. It's about 4 minutes long. Highly encourage you to watch it as well. Gives you an idea of what the gameplay is like, as well as choosing the decisions you have to make. So it kind of has some of that as well. So definitely a good watch, so you can get a better idea of what the game looks like and how it works. Now here we have an image from a different video game. This one's called Detroit Become Human, but you can see the narrative tree here and how different decisions can lead to 6 different outcomes in this game. So similarly, we see something similar in Life is Strange 2, where each decision the player makes will ultimately impact the story, the characters that the protagonist comes across, and ultimately the ending of the story. Now, regarding Life is Strange 2, so there is the power of telekinesis that the younger brother possesses, and ultimately that power is what leads them to be on the run, as they accidentally hurt a cop. And here, I mentioned one of the articles we read in our course, Ramirez-Berg argues that these aliens are represented either destructive monsters bent on extinguishing humanity, or as the virtuous and or lovable but still incompatible sympathetic aliens that offer us wisdom but still must go home to their planet at the end. The only way an alien can stay on Earth alive is to adapt, assimilate, and finally become native through the offering humanity the gift of its special abilities. So, similarly, because of the power that he possesses, superpower, he is unable to assimilate, is seen as an outsider, and ultimately needs to evade. So, how that theory of the alien plays into this video game as an outsider. In this case, in the two brothers, the younger one with the power of telekinesis isn't able to assimilate. Because of this power, he's seen as an outsider and ultimately has to flee. And in the end here, we have a few different examples of video games that explore immigration and in border video games. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons touches on some themes. Borders, a little bit more head-on, as you can see here, particularly in the U.S. and Mexico border. And Bury Me My Love as well, one of the more recent video games. So again, just showing how these video games have become a lot more prevalent in the 2010s, and it's exciting to see where these video games go in the future. Video games are a form that has the potential to integrate pleasure, learning, reflection, and expanded living. So it's very interesting where video games have come from the 70s and where they are now, and again, where they will be going in the future, and how they will be tackling these really mature and relevant themes in terms of politics and in terms of, again, borders. So yeah, that's my presentation.